Cybersecurity attacks are on the rise, and the demand placed on security professionals has pushed many of them to leave the career. Professionals have to remain vigilant for more sophisticated attacks while working increased hours under high pressure. The psychological impact has caused widespread burnout in the community. For more on how to combat this, Heino Gevers, Senior Customer Support Director at Mimecast, joins us now to just answer some of our questions around this. Heino, thank you so much for your time. How have ransomware attacks affected the mental health of cybersecurity decision makers, as highlighted in Mimecast's research?
Great. Hi, Masego. Certainly, in Mimecast State of Ransomware Readiness report that we released in 2022, 77% of global cybersecurity leaders said that the number of attacks against their company has grown and remained mostly constant over the past year. Interestingly, more than half of South African cybersecurity decision makers find their job is becoming more stressful yearly. And in fact, nearly 6 out of 10, or 58%, also said that ransomware attacks had a negative impact on their mental health. And of course, ransomware being a very prominent and common type of attack. Interestingly, 22% of our South African respondents highlighted that they're considering leaving their roles in light of the increase and the volatility of these type of attacks that have on their mental health at the end of the day.
And in the context of cybersecurity budgets, what knowledge gaps were identified within boards, and how does this impact the ability to prove ROI, for instance, for cybersecurity efforts, according to you?
In the Mimecast State of Email Security 2023 report, we cited an underfunding of 13.5%, which is, for South Africa, the highest rate of all countries surveyed. Now, qualitative data highlights and supports this, that most global security leaders that form part of the Mimecast Behind the Screens report said that they needed a security budget increase of anything between 10 and 20%. Now, of course, for CISOs, they need to cite the knowledge gaps within their boards, putting them at a disadvantage when, of course, attempting to prove ROI for cybersecurity efforts. And this is especially important considering the near universal calls for greater budget allocations to fund cybersecurity initiatives.
And what recommendations do you have for security professionals to bridge the gap between cyber risk and business risk?
Certainly, I think it's a two-pronged approach. One being, get buy-in and support from senior leadership and the board. Establish that close link between cyber risk and business risk, and having, of course, by having a high-value board-level discussions about the cyber defenses of the organization. And this can be achieved kind of in three ways. One, avoid jargon when explaining the mid to long-term risk associated with cyber threats. Link cyber threats to business outcomes to ensure, obviously, focusing on why the organization suffered a cyber attack. And then lastly, align cyber risk with business risk to ensure cybersecurity is well understood within the broader business. And then the latter piece would be certainly to prioritize mental health. Ensure mental health is a regular topic of conversation, and that there are dedicated programs to avoid stress and burnout. What we need to recognize is that cyber attacks will continue to grow in sophistication and scale. And with many security professionals suffering already from burnout and stress, organizations need to make the entire business well aware of the threats and, of course, their security posture and what they're doing to protect themselves against the threats out there.
But what about those who are watching you and I speak right now and they own small businesses and don't have a budget to, for instance, hire a full-time cybersecurity professional?
I think the key message there is that nearly all data breaches involve human error, and therefore we need to do what we can to empower our employees with the knowledge to detect and avoid risky online behavior through regular and effective security awareness programs and training. We also need to build a culture of security awareness across the entire organization and reduce business risk with security solutions designed to protect people. And lastly, protect people from cyber threats with a multi-layered security approach. One layer is just not good enough, and that will enable the organization to obviously remain protected.
And WEF, where do they come in, especially with to consider rather, what do they consider regarding cyber risks in the long term?
Yeah, I think in the long term, obviously, most organizations have come to the realization that it's not a case of if, but when. And I think if you look at that key message, it's about how we show up and how we obviously essentially operationalize our response in the event of a cyber attack. The organizations that are well prepared by doing simulations and obviously preempting the impact to their organization for when they do suffer from a cyber attack are the ones that generally come out the best on the other end.
All right, Heino, thank you so much for your time. Heino Gevers, the Senior Customer Support Director at Mimecast.